and buy store details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Ready for a one-of-a-kind look at the NFL? On the PFF NFL podcast, Steve Palazzolo and Sam Munson interpret the unique stats of Pro Football Focus to analyze the league, uncover secret superstars, and discuss which teams to watch out for in the next Super Bowl.
Let's talk some football. Let's do it, Steve. All sorts of stuff. We're going to do most improved defenses around the NFL. Solomon Wilcots, our very own. He went into some detail over at PFF.com. Most improved defenses around the NFL.
Search PFF NFL on TuneIn to listen.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
Who says you can't have a laugh while getting serious about America's pastime? On the daily podcast Locked On MLB, comedian and baseball fanatic Paul Francis Sullivan talks about each team, each pennant race, and everything else in the game. From rule changes and controversies to baseball cards and stadium food.
For those of you who are not familiar with me or the old show, I love to obsess over baseball. I'm talking baseball over the Super Bowl. We had a TV showing the division series during my wedding.
Search Locked On MLB on TuneIn to listen today.
Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, we're going to get the Friday edition of Dave Wilson's Chart of the Day. I think inspired by some of what we've seen going on in the markets because it's WOA.
WOA is right. I did finally look at my 401k. WOA.
Yeah, WOA.
Like you just get an idea of the bounce back, the fall, and then the bounce back. All right, let's first get back to your top business stories, and let's get a little bit more on that rally today. Hey, Charlie Pellet.
Well, hello there. Dave Wilson's song better be up, and away today because that's what's going on with the stock market. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all surging. Do want to begin with a story out of the airline industry. Delta says it is suspending operations in 11 U.S. markets beginning July 8th, while customer volume is significantly reduced to help lower costs as the company is trying to mitigate the crisis caused by the COVID-19 virus. Delta's suspension of operations makes up about 5% of its domestic airport service. Delta shares, along with almost everybody else in the group today, surging by 5.3%. The reason I hesitate there, Southwest had just turned negative, but UAL, American Delta, all pushing higher. Stocks are jumping, treasuries falling after a jobs report that far surpassed analyst forecasts, bolstered expectations for the economy to rebound quickly from coronavirus lockdowns. S&P up 86, up 2.8%. The Dow advancing 854 points, up 3.2%. NASDAQ up 216. That is a gain of 2.2%. 10 years down 22.30 seconds with a yield of 0.89%. Gold down 1.9%, 16.62 the ounce. And crude West Texas Intermediate surging 5.2%, 39.35 a barrel. After earnings, Broadcom shares are pushing higher today, up by 3.6%. Gap reported last night. Its shares up now by 1.8%. It is 3:33 on Wall Street. Time now for the Small Business Report. And here's John Tucker.
Bungalow Road is a gift shop with 3 locations at the Jersey Shore. They closed their doors when the coronavirus hit New Jersey. That was even before stay-at-home orders went into effect. Bridget Duffy is co-owner of the establishment. Bridget, tell us about the business. What sort of hit it's taken from the lockdown?
So mostly as a gift store, we are, a little cyclical and seasonal. That right now we're probably doing 10% of the business that we would normally be doing this time of the year. And that's kind of been the case since the pandemic started.
How did you pivot during the pandemic? Were you doing online sales or online purchases and then curbside pickup?
Yes. So we were doing Instagram, Facebook, things like that. We had a website that we had kind of like let go stagnant. And then when this started, we relaunched it again. Our store is really more about, we think, like the in-store experience. We gift wrap everything. We know a lot of the customers, and we also know the people that they're shopping for. So it's really like a, more of an experience. So it didn't always translate that well to online shopping.
Has anybody given you any clear indication of when the doors might reopen?
No, I feel like that is probably one of the things that is weighing on us the most, is that we don't have a timeline. Our stores, have a pretty small amount of people in them at one time. We usually only staff one person at a time, and there's probably at most maybe 3 shoppers at a time. So we don't really have a high capacity. So we're hoping that they can approve us to open for in-store shopping again soon.
Bridget Duffy, co-owner of Bungalow Road, 3 locations on the Jersey Shore. Thanks for talking with us. I'm John Tucker. That's the Bloomberg Small Business Report.
And we thank you, John Tucker. Again, recapping here, 25 minutes to go with the S&P up 83, up 2.7%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Shirley Bassey? Is it? It sounds like
Shirley Bassey, absolutely.
Woo!
Wow.
We can hear the tone in her voice, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of
Goldfinger.
Totally.
There you go. Wow.
But you'll never get the band.
Oh.
Come on, Dave. Well,
just give
me
it to her.
Little. It's Friday. It's National Donut Day. Just give me something.
It's been a tough week.
God.
Who is it,
Okay, you can have a Krispy Kreme glazed on me. But that's another story altogether.
Sweet. Okay, so who's the band?
This was sort of a one-hit wonder. The band is called the Propeller Heads, and the song is History Repeating, which seemed particularly
Wait, the band is called the Propeller Heads?
Correct.
That's amazing.
Do they wear
oddball
little hats with
collaborations.
propellers? Is this like a Devo version of like a band in the 60s with like little propeller hats?
Let me just talk about the chart, okay? I don't want to think about propellers at this point, although when you talk about what's going on with stocks, it certainly seems like they have propellers
we're all
moving
Googling
them higher.
images. I'm just going to tell you, we're all Googling right now, but go ahead. What's the chart?
Go right ahead, indeed. That's what I'll do. We had the biggest 50-day gain in the S&P 500 ever in the 50 days that ended Wednesday. So basically from the March lows through this week. And when I say ever, I'm talking about, since the S&P 500 actually became a 500 stock index back in 1957. So the question is, after a move like that, what's next? It's a question that Ryan Dietrich evidently asked himself. He's a senior market strategist over at LPL Financial, and he's quite the number cruncher. So he ran the numbers, and I kind of backed them up on the Bloomberg terminal just to get an idea of how stocks perform after those kinds of gains. And sure enough, there have been really 7 periods where you've seen the S&P 500 rise 20% or more over 50 days. And if you take sort of the peak from each of those periods between 1975 and 2009, you find out that every time the S&P 500 rose in the next 12 months, and the average gain was 17%. So it basically tells you that, sure, we had a big move, but if history's any guide, that doesn't mean stocks are going to stop here. They may very well keep going as they have today. If you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
I'm a little disappointed. The propeller heads aren't like wacky like Devo. I was expecting something more. They look pretty normal. Hey, Dave, I did a poll on Twitter, Beatles or Stones?
I saw that.
What do you think?
I think the Beatles probably won.
Yeah, and they were way ahead, and just by today, it's been running, I don't know, a day and a half now, or I guess about a day. 59% the Beatles, 41% the Rolling Stones.
Oh, so the Stones made a little bit of a run there at the end.
But initially,
there was some Reddit forum that got a hold of that.
What?
There was some Reddit forum that got a hold of that. It said, voted Carol Masser's poll. Don't let Mick down.
Exactly. Maybe Mick's been voting. Wouldn't that be cool?
Just voting over and over again. Who's this Carol Massar?
Yeah, exactly.
Why is she asking this question?
What is this? Who is this?
Who's this lady?
Dave Wilson, thank you for always getting all of this crazy stuff started. Have a good weekend. We'll see you later, though. Stock of the day.
All right. Let's get some world and national headlines now. Nancy Lyons has those.
Thanks, Jason. President Trump and his political rival Joe Biden have very different reactions to today's better-than-expected May jobs report.
Today is probably, if you think of it, the greatest comeback in American history. But it's not going to stop here. It's going to keep going.
The president who takes no responsibility for costing millions and millions of Americans their jobs deserves no credit when a fraction of them return.
Non-farm payrolls actually added 2.5 million jobs. The unemployment rate fell to 13.3% when many economists were fearing a 20% rate. Well, Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, says he agrees with former Defense Secretary Jim Mattis and his criticism of the president's hostility toward protests against police brutality.
He's quite a man, General Jim Mattis, and for him to do that tells you where he is relative to the concern he has for our country.
Kelly was speaking with Anthony Scaramucci, the president's former communications director. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says he has spoken to the 75-year-old man who was seen in a viral video being pushed by police officers during a Buffalo protest. 2 officers pushed the man, caused him to fall back and hit his head. He appeared motionless as the officers left him on the ground.
You see that video, and it disturbs your basic sense of decency and humanity. Why was that necessary? Where was the threat?
The 2 officers have been suspended without pay. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion or your race, or because you have children or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
At Tesco, we've price-matched Aldi on hundreds of products, like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, mushrooms, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GB Aldi stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Ready to talk brass tacks on what's happening in Major League Baseball? Turn to the Effectively Wild podcast from Fangraphs for daily statistics, analysis, and commentary.
One team will say, yeah, we're going to keep paying minor leaguers their stipend, and another team will say, we're going to extend the stipend through this month, and then another team will say, nope, we're cutting them off. So are extending it at least through August, which would basically be the end of the minor league regular season.
Search Effectively Wild on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Wondering what to play next? Want to know what other TuneIn listeners are listening to right now? Head to the trending section under Browse to explore the most popular stations and podcasts on TuneIn today. Millions of listeners like you can't be wrong. The Mina Kimes Show podcast.
Kevin Clark. If Josh Allen became the 10th best quarterback in football this year, they'd probably win 14 games. Am I wrong about that?
No. If you as a quarterback can't win in the Bills' situation right now, they should not extend you. So many teams, Jets, do not have the information they need to evaluate their quarterbacks based on the teams they built around. The Bills do.
Listen and subscribe to the Mina Kimes Show podcast.
Search the Mina Kimes Show to listen.
Are you fully informed on the NBA? On the NBA Hangtime podcast, veteran sports writers Sekou Smith and John Schumann analyze the latest NBA news, storylines, and discussions with guests from around the basketball universe.
Isaiah Thomas joined us here on the Hangtime podcast. Isaiah, good morning.
Everybody's doing well. As you know, my daughter tested positive.
Search NBA Hangtime on TuneIn to listen. Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying
to stand out stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There's going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
Search classic game replays to listen for free.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Stocks pairing gains, but still a big up day on Wall Street with the S&P up 72, now up 2.3%, have been up 3.2%. The Dow, which had been up more than 1,000 points, now up by 765. That is a gain of 2.9%. NASDAQ up 172, up by 1.8%. The catalyst for all of this, that shocker of a jobs report this morning that came in far better than expected. 10-year down 19/30 seconds, yield now 0.88%. Gold down 1.8%, 16.83 the ounce, and a surge in West Texas Intermediate crude today up 5.2%, 39.35 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home? Honey, please, I'll do the driving. Drive on. Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
till the dawn
on Bloomberg Radio.
It is time for the drive to the close. So delighted to have back with us Randy Watts. It's a great week to have him, any week, but especially with the moves that we've seen in the markets. He's Chief Investment Strategist at O'Neill Global Advisors. He's on the phone in Miami. Randy, it is good to have you back with us. I hope you're continuing to do okay.
We are, and I hope everyone in New York is safe as well. It's great to talk to you, Carol.
Yeah, we're getting by, that's for sure. I got to ask you about the markets this week. It's a pretty substantial rally again. We're now up about 43% from the lows on the S&P 500. In many ways, we were, regaining ground that was lost after the sell-off and the shutdown of the economy. What do you make about over the moves? What are the charts telling you?
Well, technically, the market has had a really, really big move. We had shifted the market back into uptrend back on April 2nd around 2,500. Clearly, if you look at the S&P, it's a little extended right here. Resistance should function around 3214, which is that February 2020 level. I think what we would like to see from here is for the indices to either consolidate or maybe even have a little bit of a small pullback. But with regards to the S&P, we'd really like to see it stay above its 200-day average, which right now is around 3,022.
And so as you look across the world, it is a complicated one, to say the least, Randy. And, I'm also, to take a little bit of a turn here, I'm intrigued to get your opinion in part because if I remember correctly, you're an American studies major. You understand history really, really well, and I know you apply that to your work looking at the market. I do wonder what you make of a market at a time of unbelievable unrest in the country, the political unrest, and then this backdrop of a market that goes up and up and up. And I think we're all trying to get our heads around it.
Especially, when we've had such a run-up, Randy, it's like the disconnect between Wall Street and what's going on in Main Street America.
So I think a couple of things. I think hopefully what the market is sensing is that if we look out, 5 or 10 years, we're going to be a much better place, both in terms of equality, both racially and hopefully also economically. Obviously, the gap between the richest and the poorest Americans is something we need to try to close. I think I think one of the trends we're going to see is some of the jobs that have moved offshore are going to come back onshore. I think that's positive for the economy. And I think the U.S. continues to be the leader in innovation, especially in places like technology and healthcare. One other point I would make is that with bond yields where they are now, today the 10-year is trading around 90 basis points, and the Fed, which we'll hear more from next week, and the Fed making it clear that they're going to keep rates very low for an extended period of time, that does make stocks more attractive on a relative valuation basis and does mean potentially that investors are willing to pay up for them.
But, it's interesting, too, and I'm listening to what you're saying, to just go a little further. I do wonder if what's going on in the market, too, though, just reminds us of, this massive divide and disconnect. So many people out there who don't get to participate in the markets. And I feel like those people who are in the markets, to some extent, are insulated in many ways from what's going on, in broader parts of our society. And I don't know. I guess I'm just wondering, how can we all be smarter and change it so that more people are participating in the wealth of society and the wealth of the financial markets?
Well, I do think, I am a capitalist, and I do believe long-term capitalism is the best way to increase standards of living within a country. I do think there are things we can do, obviously, in terms of, fiscal policy to try to close again the gap between the very richest of the society and the poorest. And I think when I think about issues in our country, I think that's obviously one of the major ones. We've got to make things a little bit more distributed than they are right now.
And Randy, when you think about sort of modeling out, if you can, reopening this economy and looking at data points like we're getting that we've been talking about, and I think it's especially interesting, given that you're joining us from Florida, we're here in New York, as you pointed out, in the tri-state area at least, this is uneven, and yet, we do know that ultimately, in general terms and directionally, the country will move as one. But how do you I guess, how do you game that out to some extent that, this is a recovery that will be not just socioeconomically, but even geographically uneven?
I mean, I think it's going to be a bumpy ride from here. I don't want anyone to forget that even though the jobs number was very, very good this day, the U.S. has still lost 18 million jobs since March. So it is going to be, a bumpy ride going forward from here. Unemployment right now is above 13%. That's higher than it got in the great financial crisis. So this is going to take an amount of time to heal and fix the economy. I do think it's going to be bumpy. I do think it's going to be uneven. I think the market is sensing that it's heading in the right direction, and we've seen the worst of the worst. Now, the question really, I think, is what is the rate of change from here as everything starts to reopen?
So you did say you think we're a little extended in terms of the S&P 500. So pause, or is there some adjustments to portfolios that you think investors kind of need to be thinking about right now?
Well, clearly what's happened the last 3 weeks is the gains have been driven by the more cyclical elements: energy, transports, industrials, and financials. Financials in particular have been helped by the fact that the yield curve has really steepened. If you look at the spread between the 2 and 10-year bond right now, it's about 69 basis points, which is obviously a lot higher than we've been in quite a while. I do think that eventually some of this cyclical rotation is going to burn itself out. And when I think about where I want to be participating over the next year, we still really do like the secular growth areas of technology, healthcare, and retail. So I think the cyclicals could have a little bit more of a move here as the economy reopens. But I do think the long-term leadership in this market is still really in the areas that America innovates in, and that's really technology and healthcare.
Yeah, it's definitely continued to lead. We've certainly seen this story before, but it definitely continues to play that way. Randy, always good to check in with you. Randy Watts, Chief Investment Strategist at O'Neill Global Advisors. Randy joining us on the phone in Miami. Yeah, I mean, the leadership, right? We talked about it with Dave earlier in the week, and that hasn't changed.
No, it definitely hasn't, and it's interesting to see it play out in the markets. We are off our highs of the day, but as Charlie Pellet sent me a message earlier today, noting when we were really in the throes of this massive rally, that I had said a couple days ago that we're just a couple good days on the S&P away from getting back into the positive for the year, and I mean, we're going to end this week less than 2%, less than 1.5% away from basically erasing all the losses from this year, bringing us even for 2020.
NASDAQ now up 9% for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to break down those closing numbers for the week and take a look at the movers and shakers right here on Bloomberg.
Business is like
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
At Asda, we're helping you shop safely by keeping our stores clean and limiting customer numbers so you can keep 2 meters apart. With our Scan and Go mobile app, you can reduce contact at the till too. Asda, we're all in this together. Subject to availability, mobile data charges may apply.
Did you know that with TuneIn's local radio feature, you can stream live FM and AM stations broadcasting in your area? Discover local news, talk, and music stations. Navigate to the local radio section under Browse to listen locally on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up at the Super Bowl predictions instead.
Look no further than the Pick Six podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brinson's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards, that's how you wind up.
Search Pick Six on TuneIn to listen. 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters. I'm Charlie Pellet. There you have it. Sound of the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange, and it is on to the weekend with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all surging today after that shocker of an employment report this morning. Stocks jumped. Treasuries fell after the employment report far surpassed analyst forecasts, and that bolstered expectations for the economy to rebound quickly from coronavirus lockdowns. Let's get right to the numbers. S&P up 81, 31.93 is where we finished the week. What a week it has been. S&P up by 2.6%. Third weekly advance, by the way, on the S&P. The Dow up 829 points, up today by 3.1%. Have been up 1,056 points, advancing 4% at the best level. NASDAQ up today by 198 points, higher by 2.1%. So an update for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. Randy Watts is Chief Investment Strategist at O'Neill Global Advisors. He was our guest a moment ago right here on Bloomberg Business Week.
With bond yields where they are now, today the 10-year is trading around 90 basis points, and the Fed, which we'll hear more from next week, and the Fed making it clear that they're going to keep rates very low for an extended period of time, that does make stocks more attractive on a relative valuation basis and does mean potentially that investors are willing to pay up for them.
And right now the 10-year 0.88%. Gold down 1.9%, $16.81 the ounce. A surge in crude oil today up 4.9%, $39.25 for a barrel of West Texas Intermediate crude. Big day for a lot of the travel names today, specifically airlines. Saw some big moves there. UAL, the United Airlines Holdings, up 8.5%. American Airlines Group up 11.1%. Delta announcing some service cutbacks. Delta up by 5.5%. The laggard, though, in the four biggest airlines, Southwest, lower today by 0.2%. So again, recapping here, the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all surging after the jobs report. S&P up 81. That was a gain of 2.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Move around. Motion creates the motion.
I feel the earth move under my feet.
You move like they do. I've never seen anyone move that fast.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Something's called movers and shakers. They cost a little more. That name cracked me up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Mazur and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Yep. No doubt about it. It was a bullish day, right? No doubt about it. I mean, you just look at how broad-based this was, and we talked about it earlier with Dave Wilson, but 461 names in the S&P 500 higher today, 43 lower, 1 unchanged. Major industry groups, 11 of them in the S&P, all of them higher. The worst performer, utilities, still with a 1.3% gain.
Yeah.
Top of the pack, energy up 7.4%, financials up 3.8%, industrials up 3.7%. Jason, we are now 43% higher on the S&P from that March 23rd low. Dow is up 45% from that low. NASDAQ is up 43% from that low. We know we hit an intraday record on the NASDAQ specifically. I mean, just the run-up in this week alone, I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
It absolutely is. And, I still am trying to get my head around all this cognitive dissonance, to be honest with you, because...
Well, it's disconnect Wall Street, Main Street. That's how I don't know. Is that what you mean? Or
I think so. I get that, and I think it's the right explanation, but I still don't totally buy it, to be honest with you, because
the market move, you mean, or the run up? Yeah,
the disconnect.
Yeah.
Just in the sense that I think the market is obviously very optimistic, and certainly, I mean, as soon as I think anyone who's paying attention, as soon as we saw that jobs number hit at 8:30, you knew what the market. You didn't even have to look at futures. Right. You knew what it was going to do.
Absolutely.
And yet, I think words of caution, not just from Chris Liu, who obviously worked in, a Democratic administration and has been critical of this administration, but, in a very even way, but also Yelena Shalecheva, our senior U.S. economist, essentially saying, look, this is one data point. Let's wait for more intel and more data to come through. And as you just said to me privately in our chat, the Fed meeting next week is going to be fascinating to hear what Jay Powell's and his colleagues' view on all of this is, because they're looking at a lot of data that goes well beyond the jobs report.
Well, and you do wonder, is Jay Powell and his Fed colleagues going to come out and say, folks, we've turned the corner, or is he going to put those words of caution, which is what I think. And Yelena talked about, and we've heard this from others, we still need more relief. Certainly to make sure that when we get on the other side of this, we can keep the economic momentum going. So certainly something. You were looking
energy
at
leading the way.
Let's talk about that.
You mentioned that when you were sort of breaking down the sectors, but your number one gainer was Occidental Petroleum. That stock, they're trading off of more enthusiasm around the economy, obviously, and
we have an OPEC meeting tomorrow too.
Yeah, and crude oil, obviously. What a different story it is from a few months ago. And again, I feel like we have lived 100 years in 3 months in many ways, and you think about what a dour story the crude and the broader energy market was as the world shut down, as you had this fight between Russia and Saudi Arabia, and now you have some of those energy names. Let me just see where Oxy is for the year. It is, it's still down 50%. So even with a big move.
Well, and I think that's what's happening too, is that you might be looking, if you're an investor, you're going to look maybe perhaps at some of the more beaten down players, because there's potential for upside. And so you definitely did see investors move in. And keep in mind, oil prices have more than doubled since late April. So there's a lot going on. And so the energy patch, and it's something we're going to watch throughout the weekend, no doubt, here at Bloomberg.
And a lot of enthusiasm, too, similarly for the travel industry, Delta Airlines. Although it's interesting, Delta and American both up, significantly, but not, they definitely gave back some of their gains as the day went on, especially as you see headlines like the one from Delta saying, we're actually we need to cut some costs here. And shutting down, at least temporarily, some of their operations at 11 markets around the country.
Got to figure out, what's viable, right?
Your private jet. What?
What?
Did I say you on a private jet?
Yeah. Let's take a look at the volatility index report on this Friday. Down about 5%. The VIX closing at 24.52. Quick check on what the VIX did for the week, because with stocks going up, VIX backed off about 10, almost 11%.
Wow.
This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave.
Who?
Dave.
Hey,
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Dave Wilson back with us to round out the week with his stock of the day. What you got?
I've got Domo, Jason. It's a maker of internet-based...
Don't call Jason that.
I'm not calling him that. Domo is a company. They make internet-based software that helps businesses track and analyze data. What's more, the company's programs are now helping 3 U.S. states, Iowa, Nebraska, and Utah, respond to the coronavirus pandemic. Domo was founded in 2010 and went public in 2018. The ticker is its name. That's DOMO. The company's shares surged in 2019's first quarter to set a record and then gave back the entire gain in the next 6 months. Domo has been just as volatile this year. The shares dropped in March to a record low of $7.62. That's down 64% from their initial price of $21. Since then, the shares have more than quadrupled. They rose to a one-year high after the company released fiscal first quarter results late yesterday. Domo's revenue was higher than analyst average estimate in the Bloomberg survey. While the company had a loss, it was in line with projections after being wider for 3 quarters in a row. Now, Domo benefited from a cost-cutting program that's designed to save $35 million once it's completed. Domo shares climbed as much as 22.5% after the results were released. Now, they did back off, give back some of those gains. Nonetheless, closed higher by about 11%.
Another SaaS company. It's up 48% this year. I'm just thinking about Zoom Info, right?
Yeah.
It just went public.
Yeah. Just like saying
software as a service. Yes, indeed.
There you go. All right, Dave Wilson, have an awesome weekend. We'll catch up with you on Monday. For now, let's get world and national headlines from Denise Pellegrini. Hey, Denise.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Well, President Trump is taking credit for that way better than expected jobs report you guys have been talking about all day today.
Now we're opening, and we're opening with a bang. And we've been talking about the V. This is better than a V. This is a rocket ship.
Yeah, a rocket ship. And the president also talking about more stimulus and a payroll tax cut, guys. Trump also used his news conference earlier today to talk about his commitment to law and order on the streets. Vice President Mike Pence is calling George Floyd's death a tragedy, and he says he's opposed to violence, all violence.
No tolerance for police brutality and no tolerance for rioting in the streets or looting.
And Pence speaking there today in a meeting with African-American community leaders at the Hope Christian Church in Beltsville, Maryland. Presumptive Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden is calling for unity today.
We need to unite as one nation. When we have, we've never, ever, ever failed to solve the problems that face us at the moment.
And Biden also saying President Trump has made economic problems worse, and he says the president needs to step out of his little bunker and take a look around at the consequences of his words and actions. And as the pace of coronavirus fatalities slows in some cities of the U.S., cases are skyrocketing in Latin America. It is essentially code red there now, with more than 1.1 million cases. Brazil and Mexico are also among the hottest spots right now. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
People love a good story. They like it even better when that story is real.
Is this something strange in the numbers?
Paul Sweeney.
That seems like a big miss to me.
Bonnie Quinn.
New funds getting started in order to take advantage of what might be a moment.
Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern.
If Russia does throw this spanner in the works, what does it do to relations going forward?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
How important is that statement there?
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the Lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
COVID-19. Can the world reopen for business?
Give us a sense of how you're ramping up and taking care of folks on the ground.
What's the long-term impact?
Why will we not see a V-shaped recovery?
When will there be a cure or a vaccine?
How can you model that at a time when it's unclear whether we're going to see a resurgence in viruses?
The answers will emerge.
Can you give us a sense of timing?
And you'll find them here. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
At Tesco, we've price-matched Aldi on hundreds of products like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, mushrooms, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Did you know that with TuneIn's local radio feature, you can stream live FM and AM stations broadcasting in your area? Discover local news, talk, and music stations. Navigate to the local radio section under Browse to listen locally on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events. He does! Fabry wins it! To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games.
Bergeron, he scores!
With game replay on TuneIn, you can listen to every power play, slap shot, and goal of the 2019-2020 season so far.
Suter to Cunnin to Fiala, he scores!
And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic game replays to start listening.
The Mina Kimes Show podcast.
Kevin Clark.
If Josh Allen became the 10th best quarterback in football this year, they'd probably win 14 games. Am I wrong about that?
No. If you as a quarterback can't win in the Bills' situation right now, they should not extend you. So many teams, Jets, do not have the information they need to evaluate their quarterbacks based on the teams they've built around. The Bills do.
Listen and subscribe to the Mina Kimes Show podcast.
Search the Mina Kimes Show to listen.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Third weekly advance for the S&P 500 index up 2.6% today, up 81 points, ending the week at 3193. Stocks jumped. Treasuries fell after that jobs report far surpassed analyst forecasts. The Dow was up 829 points, up 3.1%. NASDAQ up 198 points, up 2.1%. 10-year down 17 seconds with a yield of 0.88%. Gold down 1.7%, 16.83 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude surging 4.6%, now at 39.13 a barrel. Recapping, stocks jump after the jobs report. S&P up 81, up 2.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. You were listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Well, what an unbelievable week. And as we started to think about what we're going to do on the show today, we started thinking back. It was one of those weeks where when you say something happened on Monday, you just don't think, well, it wasn't this Monday, though. It was 2 or 3 Mondays ago, and it was just the sort of week that we had so many developments, especially down in the nation's capital, whether we're talking about protests on the steps literally or outside the gates of the White House, or various other things that happened within the administration. Ryan Teague Beckwith is here, political reporter for Bloomberg, to help us make sense of it all. And I guess, Ryan, we're trying to decide, well, what do we want to talk to Ryan about? And instead of saying, well, all of it, what we really want to ask you is, so as I take a walk this evening around my neighborhood and I run into a neighbor, what am I going to say about the week in Washington?
Man, I started to regret agreeing to do this radio hit when you said Ryan's going to help us make sense of it all. I think this is just kind of one of those weeks where I think you and your neighbor just look at each other in the eye and kind of go, wow, and leave it unspoken, because there was just so many things. I think I'm a national political reporter, and I'm covering all this as a national political lens, but I also am a D.C. resident. I live here, I vote here, and I think that the part where the fencing started going up around the White House, and then they pushed the fencing back, and now it goes past the ellipse and past Lafayette Square, and there's a whole huge area there that I walk through, to get to lunch or things like that. That is now off limits to the public, and there have been some uniformed guards outside some buildings here who don't have insignias on and won't identify themselves and only say that they're with the federal government. And that's unnerving, because those are not things that we're used to seeing in America. Obviously, this whole week with the violence going on, police violence, as well as looters in some cases, as well as these big peaceful protests, are things that all of us, I think, are looking at. But I just have to say here briefly that as a D.C. resident, there's just a kind of a special weirdness to it.
Yeah.
I have to say that mirrors, I was having a conversation with one of our colleagues here at Bloomberg, Pim Fox, who lives in the city, and sent me some pictures of Fifth Avenue of, places boarded up, just all of the devastation, and it's just kind of hard to get your head around it. I do wonder, too, I feel like at this point we really need a government that is thinking about everybody and the implications. What are you hearing about kind of the internal conversations? We certainly saw external conversations coming off of that positive or more positive jobs report, but what are the internal conversations that are going on?
Well, there's clearly a lot of division within the administration over the idea of using the military in a law enforcement capacity. I mean, if you look at the U.S. citizenship test, there's 100 questions, and they ask you, a selection of those 100 questions, and literally one of those questions is, what powers are reserved to the states? And one of the correct answers is policing. So the notion of having military come in and perform law enforcement functions is something that is rarely invoked. Like, Eisenhower did it in order to ensure that desegregation, which was a Supreme Court order, was lawfully carried out. But to do it as a sort of a show of force, I think, is the thing that there's a real division within the administration, from those who understand the implications of that and those who are really much more interested in flexing sort of military might or showing, as they said, dominating the battle space, or showing that you're strong and not weak. And so you've seen that with the they'll have an announcement that we're going to send some National Guard troops home from D.C., and then a few hours later, actually, never mind, we're reversing that. Those are kind of usually tip-offs within the Trump administration that there's a division, because that means that somebody had an idea, went ahead with it, and then was told not to. The only reason why we have all of these people here in D.C. is that because D.C. is not a state, the president can send National Guard troops here without the permission of the governor without of the mayor, that is, in a much easier way than he would if he was trying to sort of override a governor who didn't want the National Guard sent in. And there's these other federal law enforcement people who can show up because these are federal buildings, and so he's kind of doing in D.C. what he would love to do elsewhere, but none of the governors want him to do it in their state, and that's kind of why you're seeing a lot more of that activity here than elsewhere.
So, Ryan, just one quick question, only about a minute left, which is, what are the implications for this for the national political scene? Joe Biden is the presumptive nominee. We've seen a little bit more of him this week. Distill it down. What does this mean for the race?
I hesitate to say what anything means anymore.
Sure.
But I think that you did see the beginning of a division here between the sort of national security-minded, traditionally conservative Republican side, and that was with the former defense secretaries and former generals and whatnot coming out and speaking out, and the Trump base there, which it does not mind this. And I think the question is, Joe Biden has cast himself as the kind of person who can reach out to convince Republicans who are having second thoughts about Trump to vote for him. I think that remains to be seen if that would actually happen. But if it was going to happen, it might be because of things like this. I don't think people are going to listen to James and Addis and say, okay, that's them voting for Biden. But I think it gives kind of a permission if you wanted to.
All right. Ryan Teague Beckwith, always good to catch up with you. Thank you. Have a safe and healthy weekend. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Happy hour started on Wall Street at the opening bell and continued all session with the stock averages gaining 2 to 3 2/10%. The Dow rose 821 points, the Nasdaq 198, and it finished just about 3 points short of its all-time closing high. The S&P up 82. All of this because of the May jobs report. Economists were expecting to see 7.5 million job losses last month, but the Labor Department says the economy added 2.5 million instead. The prediction for the unemployment rate had been at depression levels, more than 19%, but the Labor Department says actually it fell last month to 13.3%. Now, the comeback was uneven. The unemployment rate for white workers saw a record drop. It rose, however, for black and Asian workers. So how did the experts get it so wrong? Economists were looking at the flood of unemployment insurance applications and may not have taken the Paycheck Protection Program into full account. Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the Terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
How long? How much? This is an important update from the government about coronavirus symptoms and testing. If you have any one of the following symptoms, a high temperature, a new continuous cough, loss of taste or smell, you can now get tested. Do not leave home for any reason other than to get tested. Find out how to get a test and how long to isolate at nhs.uk/coronavirus. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
At Tesco, we've price-matched Aldi on hundreds of products like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, mushrooms, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day. On this day in 2005, Spaniard Rafael Nadal beats Mariano Purata of Argentina to claim his first French Open title.
In the backhand.
It's away, and Nadal is the champion. An incredible young talent.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn. Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There's going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
10, to the 5, touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
Are you fully informed on the NBA? On the NBA Hangtime podcast, veteran sports writers Sekou Smith and John Schumann analyze the latest NBA news, storylines, and discussions with guests from around the basketball universe.
Isaiah Thomas joined us here on the Hangtime podcast. Isaiah, good morning.
Everybody's doing well. As you know, my daughter tested positive.
Search NBA Hangtime on TuneIn to listen. Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Ready to talk brass tacks on what's happening in Major League Baseball? Turn to the Effectively Wild podcast from Fangraphs for daily statistics, analysis, and commentary.
One team will say, yeah, we're going to keep paying minor leaguers their stipend, and another team will say, we're going to extend the stipend through this month, and then another team will say, nope, we're cutting them off. So are extending it at least through August, which would basically be the end of the minor league regular season.
Search Effectively Wild on TuneIn to listen.
Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
So coming up, this is a fascinating story. It's one of the most read stories that
oh, I know.
On the Bloomberg. It's great.
Well, and this is like, I've been thinking a lot about how you invest, and I feel like there's a lot of theories out there.
Yeah.
That
this theory, not very complicated.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to get into it. Fascinating story, folks. You're going to want to check this out. As Jason said, one of the most read. Let's get back, though, to Charlie Pellet with a check on the world of business. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there. Happy Friday to you both. What a week it was for the U.S. stock market with the S&P this week, up by 4.9%. Today, the S&P climbed after the jobs report, up 81 points, up 2.6%. A shocker of a report with a big surprise to the upside. That is putting it mildly. The Dow up 829 points, up 3.1%. NASDAQ rallied 198 points higher today by 2.1%. So what to make of today's jobs report? Where were the economists on this one, and how did they bungle this one so badly? That's the question raised in a Bloomberg News story. Stocks jumped after this morning's jobs report, that number surpassing analyst forecasts and bolstering expectations for the economy. Mohamed El-Arian is chief economic advisor at Allianz, the parent of PIMCO. He's also a Bloomberg opinion columnist. He was interviewed this morning on Bloomberg Television.
It could be that growth has really picked up and employment has really picked up, but that is inconsistent with virtually every single other data point we have, including continuing claims. Or it could be data compilation issues or the impact of government policies. Having said that, I would say what matters is what the market sees, and the market has taken this as confirmation of the better growth hypotheses.
And this update brought to you by Witham, a forward-thinking advisory and accounting firm helping clients to be in a position of strength in the new reality of business. Learn about their innovative solutions by visiting Witham.com. The 10-year yield, 0.86%, down 18.30 seconds. Gold dropped $30 the ounce today, lower by 1.8%. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 4.5% at $39.10 a barrel. Big day for a lot of the oil names. ExxonMobil, for example, up 8.1%. BP, the ADR, is up 7.9%. EOG Resources up 7.5%. And shares of Pioneer Natural Resources up today by 7.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. So as we've been saying, this story is among the most read on the Bloomberg for all of the day. It's about the founder of the pet retailer who did a big no-no when it comes to investing. That story is also in the magazine this week. It's on newsstands, online, and on the Bloomberg. Let's get into the story. Devin Pendleton, wrote it. He's wealth reporter at Bloomberg News, and he joins us on the phone from Massachusetts. Devin, great to have you here with Jason and myself. It's a really wonderful read, and it really goes against, what most investment advisors would say, especially for the wealthy set, on what to do with your money. So take us through and who we're talking about.
Sure. Thank you, Carol. So it is Ryan Cohen. He was a co-founder of Chewy, which is a very popular pet retailer. He was one of the biggest he founded one of the biggest online-only pet retailers, and he sold it to PetSmart in 2017 for $3.35 billion. So he was a co-founder. He didn't get all of that, but we understand he got a substantial portion. And he took those proceeds, all cash, and he invested them pretty much mostly in only 2 stocks. And he clearly didn't have a financial advisor who was suggesting he do this, because this pretty much goes against what any financial advisor would suggest you do. I mean, diversification, broad portfolio, these are buzzwords. These are things that you should be thinking about with investing any amount of money. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, he did this. He put them in 2 baskets.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, and that doesn't really make it much better. I mean, I love the quote. It's like, when I find things I have a lot of conviction in, I go all in. It's like, okay. Well, I mean, that's good maybe if you're talking about like an ice cream sundae. But like when you're talking about, your wealth, I mean, I do wonder. I mean, this almost feels like a cautionary tale for people who make a lot of money, or even people who make a little bit of money.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously has some cushion now to swing for the fences.
Yeah.
Really, an ordinary investor, anybody should not do this with their 401k. It is extremely risky, and I spoke to a financial theorist about it, and he was saying, yeah, I mean, you could do this, but pretty much if you look at the S&P 500, most of the companies that make up the S&P 500 underperform. So there's a really good chance that you are going to underperform, even a broad index.
Well, and, Devin, the other thing that I find so interesting about this, too, is that I think back, I mean, this is being a little bit silly, but I think back to there's a great scene in the show 30 Rock where Liz Lemon goes to Jack Donaghy and says, I need you to teach me that thing where you have money and it just makes you more money. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, like, when you achieve a certain amount of wealth, like, you do get access, or you potentially get access to private equity and hedge funds and all these things that aren't available to regular Joes. And so it feels like a missed opportunity in that regard, too. And you know this world so well. I mean, this is your world. I mean, you know the wealth world so well. And so this is a head scratcher.
It is. And in all of my years, my decade plus of reporting on these very wealthy people, I've never met someone like Ryan. He's got a lot of conviction that this is the right way to go. And you talk about risk. I mean, one stock he invested in was Apple, and okay, Apple's done fantastic, but the other one is Wells Fargo, and that clearly hasn't. He invested in early 2017 before they had a big public sales scandal, and the stock has not recovered, not even close.
The crazy part is, though, if you think about huge business that has become index funds, which invest in so many different names. And yet we constantly talk about that when you look at the run up in the markets, it's often concentrated in a few names. Like, I just feel like, those who say, yep, you got to be diversified are kind of talking their book a little bit. And I do think, Devin, I don't know, if you're smart, you do your homework, you can find stocks that are going to maybe make you a lot of money. And Wells Fargo may have had its problems, but you also get a dividend.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And he has actually done pretty well when you take those dividends into account. He is a firm believer in stock analysis. He really does. And what he says about Wells Fargo is that it's a bet on the long-term economy, long-term health of the U.S., and it's a good low-risk underwriter. So he has put a lot of thought into it. It's not because they gave him a loan, which they did when he was starting Chewy. He really believes in it.
Yeah, interesting. Well, he's 34 years old, so, time is on his side, I guess. Devin Pendleton, thank you so much. It's a really, really nice story, and she has one of the most read stories at the Bloomberg. And
it's a great story.
I feel like it's going to be one of those that people are going to... It's going to have a nice long tail on Bloomberg.com, too, because people are going to tune into it. Yeah.
Right. And I've been thinking a lot about this market and the moves that we see. And, people who can figure out some of the trends and the cycles, that's how they make a lot of money, right? Versus the average investor just plops their money and just leaves it alone.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. I don't know. Wells Fargo, maybe just like stagecoaches. This is Bloomberg. Let's get to Denise Pellegrini for some world and national headlines. Hey, Denise.
I have always been partial to that logo, I gotta tell you. Well, President Trump patting himself on the back today for that May jobs report that you guys have been talking about, and he says more is yet to come.
Today is probably, if you think of it, the greatest comeback in American history, but it's not going to stop here. It's going to keep going.
Yeah, keep going and going. And the president also talking about more stimulus and a payroll tax cut. That would help. Trump spent part of the afternoon in Maine. He told a roundtable event with commercial fishermen he wants to impose tariffs on European cars and on some Chinese products as well, unless the two regions cut their duties on U.S. lobsters. Presumptive Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden says the president's actions on the economy and the pandemic are actually making things worse.
It's time for him to step out of his own bunker, take a look around the consequences of his words and his actions.
And Biden there referring to last Friday night when protesters gathered outside the White House and the president was briefly taken to the underground bunker there. D.C.'s Mayor Bowser has now officially renamed a section of the street in front of the White House the Black Lives Matter Plaza. COVID-19 cases in the U.S. this week rising 1.2%. That matches last week's average. The pace is rising in California, though, and Universal theme parks in Florida open again. But visitors at Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure say the parks are nearly empty. And the wait, Jason and Carol, for Dr. Doom's Fearfall and for the Incredible Hulk coaster, only 5 minutes long right now, guys, so just hop on down. Global News 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. NJIT faculty mentored Christoph Camacho when he was a student, helping him co-found a startup and patent a device that uses drone technology for reforestation and to collect